Hi everybody. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at how to work with color inside of Adobe Premiere Rush. First, we're going to take a look at how to use the presets, and then also learn how to use the Edit tab to make actually your own adjustments when it comes to working with color inside this program. So let's take a look at how to work with color inside of Adobe Premiere Rush. So first off, we need to go to this tab right here with the three circles. We click on there, and then you're going to see at first that we have a lot of built-in presets here. You can think about them like an Instagram filter, so to speak, where really all you can do with these presets is go in and then turn the intensity of them up and down. So for example, if I take this one right here and I click on it and I turn up the intensity, you see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to bring that back to 100 and then click none. This way you have the original image. Now let's dive into the Edit tab inside of the color portion of Adobe Premiere Rush. So when I click Edit, you're going to notice that you have your basic functions and then your advanced functions. So we're going to start with basic. This panel should look similar to the Lumetri panel if you're familiar with Adobe Premiere Pro. So first, you want to make sure you select a specific clip that you want to edit. And then if you turn up the exposure, you're going to notice that's going to turn up the exposure of the clip, making things brighter or much darker. And you see this little arrow right here lets you reset all of the functions to default. We also have the contrast scale that you could use, which is going to make things, make the differences between brightness and darkness more stark or more muted. Then we have our highlights, which is going to turn up the brightness of the brightest areas in an image, or turn down, depending on where you decide to move your slider. And then finally, we have shadows. And this is where you can adjust the darkness of dark areas of the clip. So you see if I go to the right, you can see this black pullover that I'm wearing is going to get much brighter, but then when I turn it down, you lose almost all the color information at that point. So you need to use these sparingly. And also along the way, notice that if you click this tab right here for turn off color settings, this kind of would help you get a before and after. So for example, you'll see before and after with the highlights being used there. Now let's take a look at some of the other tools that you can use inside of the Edit tab for color. So first off, we have Temp. This is going to be used to warm up or cool down the white balance of the image. So you'll notice, especially if you look at like my white t-shirt, that the color of that is going to go more blue or more orange depending on where I am on this scale. We also have Tint, and Tint is going to go between green and magenta. Then we have Vibrance, and this is going to turn up the intensity of the more muted colors in your clip. So you'll see like right here, for example, that some of the darker colors are becoming much bolder as I go up on this scale. And then vice versa, if you go all the way down on Vibrance, you'll notice it almost turns into black and white. And if you're wondering what I'm doing here, if you double click towards the center, it will turn everything back to 0. And then finally, we have Saturation, and this turns up the saturation of all the colors in the clip. I'll set that back to 100. So for those of you who want a quick refresher of what each one of those slider bars does inside of the basic functions of the color tab, here's a slide showing you that content. Feel free to press pause if you want to take some notes. Now I'm going to move on to the advanced functions of Adobe Premiere Rush Color. So in the advanced functions, your options are you have a faded film, you have sharpening, and then you also have a vignette that's available to you. The faded film is supposed to replicate a faded film effect on a clip. The sharpening is going to sharpen edges. You'll see that you normally can see a much more of a effect if you unsharpen things. As you see, you get this blurry image. But then when you go too far to the right, you'll notice it almost becomes a little blocky. So this can't necessarily make things look like they're in focus all the time. So use that one sparingly. Then we have vignette, and this is going to create a vignette around your image. And you'll see, if you go all the way to your left, you'll see more of a dark vignette around the corners of the image. And then if you go all the way to the right, you'll have a brighter vignette around the corners of the image. And then I'm going to turn back up that vignette. So this way, if you feather it, you'll notice if you have a lot of feathering that it's going to be very diffused the way this vignette appears. Versus when you have no feathering, it sort of looks almost like a scope in a way where it does not blend in with the image whatsoever, but there might be some artistic reasons why you'd want to do this. And that's it for our edit tools inside of the color tab of Adobe Premiere Rush. Some limitations to just be aware of is that there's no secondary color correction available, and then also some of the other advanced functions that you may be familiar with in the Lumetri panel are not available inside of Adobe Premiere Rush. This program is a great way to start your editing process though, so give it a shot.